The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
3, 2. What is going on, CaneSport, and good morning to you all. It is Monday, October 21st. I am Izubee Charles, joined by Matt Shodell, and welcome to Good Morning CaneSport. I'd like to thank all of you for starting your day off with us. Matt, I want to jump right into it. Miami is 7-0, thankfully. Another weekend of cardiac canes. You called Cam Ward like the human defibrillator, some crazy thing like that. Hopefully you didn't have your heart racing too much this weekend, but a huge one on the road against Louisville. A lot of things to talk about from this game. Miami kind of finally got through this really bad 3-game stretch where they came unscathed, undefeated heading into FSU week. Before we talk about the Seminoles, let's talk about the Louisville Cardinals. Matt, what are your thoughts, after that shootout in Louisville?
Well, first, I'd like to thank Gary Furman for not being on this morning. It's always nice to be on with you, Izubee. There's a lot to say off the game, right? Because it's almost like Republicans and Democrats. Like, depending on who you listen to, the team's just not going to be good, and we're reliving 2017 all over again, or this is finally that moment that Miami Hurricane fans have been waiting for over 20 years, or for some of us, all our lifetimes, right, Izubee? Because I don't know how old you are, but you don't look very old. But so anyway, so I wrote a column this morning on the website. You can look at it. And it's because it sort of is a dichotomy, right? I pointed out there were some of the threads post game, right? One was, I should be ecstatic, but I'm not. Another thread was, watching the games the last 2 weeks made me realize the SEC and Big Ten are on another level than Miami. Arroyo and the tight ends are quiet, right? They had no catches. And then, can we fire Guidry after the game? Stuff like that. And listen, I'm the most pessimistic person in the world. People know this, right? But that's overreacting, okay? The team's 7-0. There were so many positives out of this game. Not so many on defense necessarily, other than Ruben Bain is back. Okay, that's a huge deal that I don't think people are talking about. Like, he is back, and he looks better than last year, as good as last year, whatever you want to phrase it. And Simeon Barrow is a freaking beast. Tyler Barron, maybe he didn't have big stats, but he was getting after the quarterback too. I think he had 5 quarterback hurries. Like, this defensive line is elite, okay? The problem, and I don't understand why on defense, is Noah and Wesley Bassane are just lost. They're lost. I don't know why. Like, Bassane started great this year, but the last couple of games, it's been rough for him, man. These guys should be getting better, right? Noah played all last year, knew what he was doing in the same exact defense, and he looks just totally out of sorts this year. I don't understand why that happened. There's no explanation for it. I talked to him before the game. He just, he doesn't seem to think that he's playing that badly, I guess, or that poorly. His grades were terrible. Both of them were bad grades from Pro Football Focus. And you can just see it on film. And then the secondary, look, I talked about this before the game. The secondary is a mess. It wasn't a secret. Gary was saying how they can get better with the bye. I was saying they are what they are, right? You can't just change personnel. There's no free agents to get in the middle of the season. It is what it is. Now, with that said, yes, there are teams like Louisville that will score a lot of points, even like Virginia Tech and Cal. But as you look at the rest of the schedule, I think Miami's played their hardest games. I think Virginia Tech and Louisville at the end of the year, we're going to look back and say, those two teams were probably the most well-rounded teams Miami's going to face, right? Georgia Tech's quarterback's banged up right now. Syracuse has no defense. Great passing attack. They could score 38 points on Miami, but their defense is awful. Wake Forest is a non-entity in terms of being a well-rounded team that's going to win a lot of games. Duke is not a real one-loss team. Everyone knows that. And then FSU is terrible. So I honestly think Miami's toughest games are behind them, right? So nobody's talking about that. This team should be undefeated at the end of the year, at the end of the regular season, and could be. And something else I point out, which is really interesting, is if SMU and Clemson, who do not play each other and who are both undefeated and who are probably the two best other teams right now in the ACC, unless you think for some reason Pittsburgh is, and Pittsburgh plays SMU, right? So one of them is going to potentially be undefeated, hypothetically. Although actually I think Clemson plays Pittsburgh also. So most likely SMU and Clemson would be the two that could be hypothetically undefeated, tied with Miami. If that happened, if those three teams finish this run undefeated, there's a long way to go, because Clemson, I know, is 5-0 in the conference. But I think the other teams have only played 2 or 3 games in the conference, each of them, like SMU and Miami, right? But if that happened, Miami would not be in the ACC title game. They would finish undefeated in the regular season and be left out of the ACC title game because the first tiebreaker in this ridiculous ACC system, if you're all undefeated and there's a three-way tie, it goes all the way down to common opponents in the conference and their records, right? And right now, if you ended it right now, Miami's not playing the top teams in the conference, That's just an issue for Miami, and that's the way the schedule sort of crumbles. Is that the word? But for us to project right now that that's going to happen, I think is unlikely. I think more likely than not there'll be one or two undefeated ACC teams, Clemson probably and Miami probably, and then I don't think there'll be more than that. I think SMU will stumble at some point. They're not that great, They're really, really good, but they're not great. And I think when you have Cam Ward, and the other thing that was so big in this past game, and I'm breaking down the film actually today in between basketball media day and the football press conferences. I'm not busy at all, but I'll find time to do it. The run game, the resurgent run game from Miami. This was the second game of the entire season where Miami ran the ball more than it passed in a game, believe it or not, even though there was blowouts in those early season games, right? They still passed more than they ran. The only other game that they did not do that, I think, was Florida A&M. That's it, right? So they're getting back that balanced offense. And you saw when Damian Martinez, and thank God Gary's not here to gloat, because Gary Furman gloating is nothing anybody wants to see. But he said Damian Martinez will be fine. And he was right, but what Miami coaches saw and what the rest of the world saw made Gary Furman wrong, right? Because Damian Martinez was benched. Mark Fletcher started against Louisville over Damian Martinez for the first time all year, and Damian Martinez didn't see a touch until the last play of the first quarter. So Gary Furman was somewhat wrong, but he wound up being right because Damian Martinez looked like a different back. Whether it was the week of rest, whether it lighted a fire under his butt when he became a backup for the first time in his life, I don't know. But that guy ran like a man possessed. And if he plays like that the rest of the year, along with Mark Fletcher running and hopefully not fumbling anymore, and A.J. Allen looks fast and explosive, that's the running game that Miami was supposed to have all year. And it finally showed up. And it's not too late. They're undefeated. It's not too late for that to show up. But good luck trying to stop Cam Ward with his ability. I'm starting to look at some of his plays also from the game, because you can't tell live or even just watching TV straight up what he did. What Cam Ward did in this game is he made plays no other college quarterback makes. For instance, when he rolled left and hit Restrepo over the DB and he made that throw as he was getting hit, right? That was actually a mistake. Cam Ward had a clean pocket, nobody even near him, and he rolled left and he put Elijah Arroyo out of position, out of leverage on the block, and the defensive end came totally free to hit Cam Ward on the play. No need to do that. A normal quarterback, he's hit as he throws, made a bad decision to roll out when you didn't need to in a clean pocket. That's not going to be a positive play. But Cam Ward's strength, athleticism, arm ability, angles of his arms, which kept that ball, kept the arm essentially, his arm socket kept it from essentially having an impact from the guy hitting him. And the ball went right to Xavier Restrepo for 60 yards. That's a play nobody else makes. Then there's another play, the throw to Jacoby George in the back of the end zone, right? Yeah. Louisville ran a bunch of different fronts just from the first quarter, rushing three, their standard, where four are rushing. They had a play where they put 6 on the line, put 5 on the line, dropped 2 into coverage and blitzed the linebacker, right? They did all sorts of different stuff just to try and make Cam Ward not do what he does. Nothing worked. And a perfect play again of what he does, aside from those 3 third down conversion runs when nothing is open, and he can just do that, which again, nobody else really does that on a consistent level, right? But that throw in the back of the end zone to Jacoby George, where he bought time by rolling left, right? And then against a 3, this is from the 30-yard line going in, short field, right? Essentially, they're dropping 8, rushing 3, and you're still getting some pressure, right? Because you've sat in the pocket so long with nobody open because they dropped 8. That now Francis Mauigoa's man is being pushed into you. So he rolls left onto the short side of the field, running to the boundary, almost out of bounds, flings a pass into the back of the end zone. Every other quarterback in this country, when that is when you know what your play call is on offense, and that's what their defense shows you, you're throwing that ball away, right? You're just not doing what Cam Ward did. But Cam Ward turned it into a touchdown with a skill set that nobody else in the college game has, and maybe even some NFL guys don't have it, but the mobility, the vision, the always keeping your eyes downfield, the athleticism, the arm talent, the accuracy. Like, that's not a play that a normal quarterback makes, right? So Cam Ward and running game. Jalen Rivers playing left guard and left tackle, by the way. When they want to run the ball to the left side, they put Markel Bell at left tackle, and they put Jalen Rivers at left guard all game long, and they run right in between them, and it was successful time after time. You can watch it on film, okay? That's huge, all right? So you got the resurgent run game. You got Jalen Rivers back, playing two positions extremely well. And you got Cam Ward. Like, good luck outscoring Miami. I don't care if Miami has a bad secondary right now. Even with Mawanoa and the Saints totally lost, they'll play better. They can't play worse. So, and you're going to have levels of competition that aren't as good as Louisville, right? Louisville was probably the most talented team front to back on the schedule, and they blew them up on offense versus defense. So I don't understand how Miami can lose a game from this point unless they mentally implode. That's the only thing that can cause a problem right now is locker room problems, mental implosions, not taking games seriously. I can't imagine that happening at this point, just knowing this is an older team with all the transfers they have, right? Knowing what Cam Ward does and is. So I'm going ahead and saying it. Undefeated regular season. That's my prediction.
We need somebody to clip this, hang this in the rafters. Matt Shodell is happy.
And people can stop complaining until they lose again. Stop saying, fire this guy, fire that guy, replace this guy. Why aren't the tight ends involved? If they're winning and they go undefeated, it's not 2001 people, okay? It's not domination on both sides, but that's not what happens nowadays. Everyone has decent players with the portal and everything else. Anyway, sorry, Izubee. Go ahead. You're getting on a roll. I got a little annoying. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm used to Gary.
Listen, well, I was gonna say you kind of stole the words out of my mouth. I'm kind of happy Gary's here this morning to hit the "I told you so" with Damian Martinez because he has been the number one fan of Damian Martinez the whole entire year. Even when the Cal coach was saying he's the best running back they'll face, Gary was like, "Hey, look at this." So I know Gary's happy somewhere, smiling this morning, knowing Damian Martinez kind of had that kind of breakout game and that whole rushing attack. When I wrote my takeaways on Saturday, I said the rushing game has finally arrived. And I was surprised to see A.J. Allen in there, too. I was about to text one of my buddies, like, what the hell's going on? Why is A.J. Allen in the fourth quarter? But, hey, he ends up getting a few good carries, scores, and kind of – I feel like he's that kind of switch of pace back. You get Damian Martinez, who's the bruiser, Mark Fletcher, who's the bruiser, and then A.J. Allen, kind of that scat back. So hopefully we can see him a little bit more, down the line. I was surprised we didn't see Jordan Love, but, a game like that, I'm not too sure you want to throw a true freshman out there in that fire, on the road. And you mentioned the defense, giving up 45 points or however many points, not counting the kick return. But, hey, like you said, only can go up from here. It can't get any worse. And I don't think they're going to face an offense as good as Louisville. And I feel like people are kind of taking credit away from Louisville and Jeff Brom. He's been one of the kind of best, offensive minds in college football for a while. Even Cliff Kingsbury last week said he stole a play from Jeff Brom's playbook and kind of gave him kudos in the NFL. So if you have NFL guys taking place from your playbook, you're doing something right. And like you said, Mao Go and Wesley Bassett are having good games, but hey, worst you can do is get better, and I think that'll be the case. And I really do think these next two games are going to be super, super beneficial for Miami. You have an FSU team that's struggling, is having their worst season in almost 50 years, and then the best or worst 6-1 team in the country in Duke. So two quick breathers for Miami after this kind of cardiac Canes 3-week stretch. So I think that's going to be huge for them. Matt, I know Gary's not here to talk about Damian Martinez, so I'm going to put you on the spot this time. Who do you think should be the starter going forward? Are you going with Martinez or are you going with Mark Fletcher?
I don't think it matters. I think that they probably will go back to Martinez, a little bit better of a pass protector. And the difference with Damian Martinez, and this might have been a message to him as much as anything. I don't think they're saying, "Hey, you're the backup now forever," right? I mean, they didn't bring him in to be the backup, as good as Mark Fletcher is. But there was one run in particular, and it's not him carrying the defense on his back with everyone pushing him, or him running over a safety even on that touchdown run. But on that touchdown run that he had, what was most impressive wasn't that he ran over a safety or that he dragged 3 guys into the end zone or 2 guys into the end zone at the end of the play. You watch that play, and there was carries just like that he received earlier in the season, right? It's just a designed run up the middle, out of the RPO, just shotgun, the usual, nothing different, right? What he did different is he didn't hesitate. He didn't dance around behind the line, because if he did, there was a blitzing linebacker from the, I think it was from the strong side or the weak side, and one of the sides, I can't remember. I think it was weak side. And he was this close to nailing Damian Martinez for either a tackle for a loss or no gain. If Damian Martinez had hesitated at the line, which he had been doing every freaking game until now. But Damian Martinez got that ball, and he just went into the small hole right up the middle, And then if you watch the film on that touchdown run, he's actually starting to run to the left towards a gap, and that gap is quickly closed because I think it was Jalen Rivers got a little out leveraged, but then regained the leverage. But what you watch Damian do is he stutter steps to keep his momentum. So he's here, and then he quickly shifts direction to where the new hole has now opened up. Okay, so he hit an initial hole quickly, hit the second hole, and then he's gone. Runs over the safety right after that, and then into the end zone with 2 guys on his back. I mean, that's a run that is elite level, that few players in the country make. With that sort of power and that sort of even vision. Like, I don't understand how a guy that can make that run. If you watch tape of it, if fans out there can find the clips, I mean, we'll run it at some point this week. We'll have to break it down, but if you watch that clip and you compare it to the clips from the first 6 games of him running any other carry you can pick for him, it's like a different guy. And maybe over the 2 weeks off, he got some words of advice, some words of encouragement. I don't know, but I did find it funny. This is an aside. That Tums was the TV sponsor for this game. I made a lot of money. Now on the flip side, you mentioned the defense and the issues on the defensive side, and I'm not sugarcoating Lance Guidry. Lance Guidry was completely outclassed, completely outcoached. There's no doubt about it. They made mincemeat of that defense. Okay, and it's not even like there were that many busts. It's just the personnel, the groupings, the way that they lined up. Nothing fooled Louisville's offense. And the only time Louisville really struggled, they sort of stopped themselves when they did have guys open and they did have some holes to run through, and they just didn't get it done. So is that concerning? Of course. As you move down the line, and you mentioned there's no good offense that Miami faces, I think Syracuse will be the best offense that Miami faces, because not that Georgia Tech's not good running and passing, but Syracuse is probably the best pure passing attack with McCord that they're going to see all year. So that team can put up 35 to 42 points against the Miami if this isn't fixed. And I'm curious to see what Lance Guidry says later today, because he's usually pretty honest about things. I don't know if he's willing to say what went wrong, because it will reveal to other teams that there's a major problem and what it is. But I think other teams already know what the problem is. And what the problem is when the pass rush doesn't get there fast enough, or the quarterback's able to escape the pocket. These guys in the secondary, in particular, De'Ani Hill and oftentimes Darryl Porter are the main 2 culprits. They cannot stick with guys. And he keeps putting Francisco Mauigoa in coverage. That's going to be a huge problem. Like, Francisco Mauigoa was targeted 10 times in the game, and Lance Guidry never fixed it. Louisville made a point to make sure that Mauigoa was matched up on their players as often as possible. Whenever he was going out in coverage, they threw the ball there, and they completed 8 of them. Okay? Like, that stuff, a good defensive coordinator, you fix that. You adjust. You don't let them keep doing that. I understand that Darryl Porter can get targeted. Like, what are you going to do? You don't have the personnel there. But you need to find a way to put a safety on the slot guy. Do something. Don't put Mauigoa out there when he's getting torched. So do I have some issues with the Guidry defense? Of course. It was not good enough. It was nowhere near good enough. It was terrible. I'm sure they'll tell you that too later today. Like, it was not good enough. It was not Miami's football. It was not Miami's standard. And my expectation, honestly, is that Lance Guidry blames himself. When he gets up there later today, remember I said this, he will say it's my fault. I didn't do well enough. I wasn't prepared well enough. And he'll be right. And in most industries, that's a fireable offense. No, it's not. So stop posting to fire him. Give the guy a chance.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. Everyone's like, Guidry needs to go. He can't recruit. He can't coach. This defense is awful. It's just like, guys, pump the brakes. Enjoy the winning. They already have as many wins as they had, the last years at the midway point this year. They look completely different and all that good stuff. But before we move on, I kind of want to ask you something that you kind of, talked about a little bit earlier. I wasn't around for that 2017 team that started off 10-0 and then completely lost all tires, on the car. Everything imploded. ACC championship. I don't want to get too much in detail, bring back bad memories. But do you see this team any different than that team, or kind of what's the biggest difference between that team that got off to a 10-0 start and this team that's getting off to a 7-0 start?
There are some similarities in the fact that they're eking out wins, right? The last 2 games before this one, right, you could argue that there were some overturned calls that could have gone either way. This game, Louisville's complaining that the Cam Ward fumble should have stayed a fumble, right? Even though I personally think that he had control of the ball for a split moment before it was sort of out of his hand, and fumble return for a touchdown at that point. So, this is a thin margin of victory, which was the case back then also, right? But this is a totally different feeling for this team, because it just feels like this team will win no matter what. That team, there was no feeling back then like, wow, this is a really, really dominant team that just finds ways to win no matter what behind a great elite quarterback. There was not an elite quarterback in those days, okay? They won with a decent defense and a good enough offense. This team is winning with a great offense and a defense that is good enough up front and not good enough in the back end. So when you look at that, just that sort of big picture view, like, I'll take the number one offense in the country, which Miami is right now, number one in total offense, number two in scoring offense, number one in passing offense. I will take that with a sort of a questionable defense versus having not a championship level offense and not a championship level defense. At least this team has a championship level offense. We can say that with certainty. We could not say that in 2017. We cannot say that as Miami Hurricanes fans could not say that dating back probably to 2002, maybe a little bit of 2003 they thought it, but really 2002. That's the last time Miami Hurricane fans could say, I think we have a championship level offense that's good enough to win a national championship. This team has that for the first time since 2002. That was not the 2017 team, okay? Now the question becomes, can they find enough stops on defense to be able to beat really, really good teams in the playoffs? Because, again, I don't see a way in which Miami's not going to make the playoffs at this point unless they just stumble against a bad team at some point the rest of the way here. I mean, you got Duke, FSU, Wake Forest, Syracuse, Georgia Tech. You don't lose to any of those teams with the number one offense in the country, in my opinion. And when none of them have offenses that scare you except Syracuse's passing game, So, and all of them already lost games, obviously. So, so I think the sky's the limit for this team. I really do.
I have to agree with you on that. And I kind of want to talk about the defense a little bit. I feel like this has been the only game this year that in the second half, Lance Guidry's like completely not found his footing and kind of, slowed down, the offense a little bit. I feel like against Virginia Tech, obviously, they're down 10 points. But I feel like in that second half, he slowed them down a little bit versus Cal, allowed them to score, 3 or 1 touchdown in the second half. The only thing that they scored was a pick six. But I feel like this game was just like, no matter what he did, Louisville had to answer. And like I said earlier, I don't think they're going to face an offense as dynamic as, good as Louisville for the rest of the way. So I'm not ready to, get pitchforks and, march, Guidry out of Coral Gables. I think, defense will have their better days for the tail end of this season. I really do think, I keep saying this, I do think these next 2 or 3 games, wherever they may be against, I'm not going to say lesser opponents. He's never want to completely disrespect, FBS Power 4 program. But I do think this is going to be kind of a, we can breathe now. We got through that 3-game stretch, which I think was incredibly, incredibly crucial for really finding out who this team was. Because my first 2 years covering this team, I've seen them lose games like this. The Middle Tennessee State game, which was a complete blowout. Last year's Louisville game where they were trading blows but couldn't find it at the end. And just, a handful of other games that Miami lost by 1 possession these last 2 years. So seeing these last 3 games and seeing them come out with wins when, first 2 games they had to, come back from double digits, or this last game, go blow for blow and, stop a Louisville comeback. I think those are things that you love to see. It just kind of shows that progression of where this team is at in year 3. And now with Florida State kind of leading into this upcoming week with those guys. Cristobal hasn't beaten those guys in 2 years. We know the 45-3. We know the Emory Williams game last year. Matt, I know this isn't the matchup that a lot of people thought we were going to have heading into the year, but just what are your quick thoughts about Florida State coming in and just, what Miami's going to do to those guys?
Yeah, I mean, Florida State's just bad. I mean, one of the worst defenses, offenses, really one of the worst offenses in the country, obviously. I think their starting quarterback got benched at one point. Did he have 3 turnovers on 3 plays or something? And then they bring in a true freshman and they bring the true freshman back out. I mean, they're a disaster on offense, and their defense is below average. This is just going to be, a fun game, a party game for Miami, because it's not going to be competitive. And, the only thing I worry about, because I'm a forward-thinking person, obviously, just look at me, is next year. Because if FSU can go undefeated all of last season in the regular season and then have this, what's going to happen to Miami next year without Cam Ward, without whoever else? They lose all their transfers pretty much. So, they got to restock or hope their freshmen really develop redshirt freshmen really develop, sophomores really develop. So that's going to be interesting, right? Because modern college football, it's no longer about development only. It's about free agency. And you have to have the right combination. You have to develop, and then the places you as a coach need to recognize, okay, here are our holes. Like, for instance, I said this last week before the game. I said if Miami loses this game or loses a game in the future, it'll probably be because of their secondary, and that's on Mario Cristobal, because they didn't bring in the free agents that maybe they could have if they bid a little more money. I know they tried to get some, but they didn't. They settled for Deani Hill, because he played at Marshall with under Guidry and the defensive backs coach, and they got Mish Powell, who I think was a really good pickup at the time. He's struggled. Okay, let's face it, he has struggled for a couple of games here. But that's it, right? And they don't have depth at safety. Jaden Harris has been below average, in my opinion. Mish Powell's been just okay, in my opinion. Deani Hill has not done well. They brought in Jadaeus Richard as a transfer from Vanderbilt. He's been average to below average for the most part. OJ Frederique, a true freshman, is holding the secondary together. Imagine if they didn't have OJ Frederique. Right. Like, what do you do then? And I understand Damari Brown's hurt, but injuries do happen, right? So there are a lot of issues in the secondary that were not addressed, that should have been addressed. Everyone knew the secondary was going to be an issue, or a question mark at least, heading into even spring ball, and they just weren't able to get people there. So as you look to next year, you want to know that these coaches, unlike what FSU did, recognize, hey, here's our deficiencies. We're going to address them with this, and this. In using NIL money or whatever it may be. Because that's what's so important, to keep the progress going, right? I don't want this to be a one-year deal like what FSU had last year, and then Miami loses to a Georgia or something, and it's like, okay, well, next year will be great again, and then they're not. That's the problem. You have to be self-sustaining, and that comes through recruiting and development. And this team's winning, let's face it, mostly with transfers. Those are the stars, to some extent, on both sides of the ball, right? Mawanoa, who's not starring, but he is a leader back there. Powell's a leader. Akeem Messidor came in as a transfer, right? Darrell Porter came in as a transfer. Like, there's a lot of starters in the defense that are transfers. And on offense, obviously, Cam Ward, Martinez, the starting center. You see Cam McCormick, who's their blocking tight end. You sort of go down the list, Sam Brown. So there's a lot of transfers that are helping on both sides of the ball. And yeah, if you can keep hitting on transfers every year, that's fine. But FSU learned that you can't always do that constantly. And that's what FSU's biggest problem is right now. They lost a ton of transfers last year. They brought in more transfers that didn't work out. The culture's not right there. They brought in a bad quarterback transfer who didn't work out. And now they're stuck. They're 1-6, and their recruiting class is going to go to hell, and the future of the program is going to go to hell, and the fans are unhappy. So that's long-term what I'm hoping Mario Cristobal has a plan for. I assume he does. And this year's looking great. So as long as you keep it rolling, like that's the goal.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I actually saw that on the message board yesterday. Somebody's like, so what are we going to do next year without Cam Ward?
Nobody wants to hear about next year. I'm the only one. I thought I was the only one. I didn't see that post, but my alter ego must have posted. Greg, I assume, posted that, because Greg's my alter ego. So
the Stone Cab King got on the message boards and started up some.
Oh, dude, I went out stone crabbing. Our first pot. I don't know if you can see a picture. I don't know if I won't put the. It's hard to see pictures on here. The very first pot that we pulled, stone crab season, this is not a joke, 13 claws. They were piled up, two layers on top of each other, the stone crabs. I've never seen a pot like that in my life. Like, I've been crabbing with my buddy for over 20 years. We don't take pictures of our pots, really. I did a video once because Gary asked me to, which he constantly now posts or shows in the stupid show. But, like, he took a picture. That's how crazy. Like, we don't take pictures of our pots. We don't take pictures of stone crabs, nothing like that. We've been doing it too long. It's like I have a Stouffer's pizza every day for lunch almost. I don't take a picture of it. It's just normal. And these normally we do pretty well in stone crabbing. This was extraordinary, and he literally took a picture of it, and I have it on my phone. I mean, it was a sick pot. I'll try to put it on my screen here. You could share your thoughts while I try to do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say Miami 7-0. Matt, you're hitting the holy grail with stone crabs. What's next? I mean. Everything's going the right way now.
All right, so here it is. Let's see. If I turn off my lights, I don't know. Let's see. That doesn't really show up, does it? Let me turn off my light here.
Is
that even able to be seen?
Yeah, I think it's just too bright.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the people.
If I turn my brightness down, this is worth turning your brightness down for. Let's see. Oh.
That's a little bit better. You can
Okay, so
definitely
that's just full of stone crabs right there. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see the claws?
Yeah.
Now, some of them weren't keepers, but the keepers, there was 13 of them. I mean, it was nuts. And it was raining on us. It was sort of nasty out. But yeah, good times.
Yeah, but back to Florida State a little bit.
Oh, wait. Oh, we're talking about football? Oh, my bad. I
Yeah.
totally forgot.
As much as we love stone crabs in your alter ego posting on that board, that was a great job by him or whoever actually did it. But yeah, I think honestly, with that being said, obviously Florida State banked on those transfers for 3 years, had that big season. I think what Coach Cristobal has done in the recruiting class and recruiting high school kids is going to kind of supplement that and become more of a norm, seeing the high school guys rather than the transfer portal guys. And we've been seeing people have that argument: is he going to use the portal too much? Whatever it may be, but I think Cristobal is doing a great job of getting those big time recruits in and kind of becoming key guys. Like you mentioned, Ruben Bain, a key guy on that defensive line. Francis Maino, a key guy on that offensive line. Xavier Strupp, Jacoby Jones. There's a lot of homegrown talent on this team, but you can never go wrong when you want to bolster up a roster and kind of supplement that through the transfer portal. Kind of moving on from the defensive back group. I know Damari Brown has been hurt. Not saying he'd be a game changer, but I just can't imagine or I want to I wish I could see what the defensive secondary would be like with him in that backfield. But, we'll see these next few games how that secondary holds up. Won't be.
Well, see, Izubee, here's the thing, Izubee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if only Damari Brown was there. Where's the championship level depth, right? Yeah. Next man up. This is the issue, right? At some point, Miami has to get to to that level where the next guy up is the next great guy. I mean, the natural progression is, Damian Martinez leaves, Mark Fletcher will start next year, right? The natural progression is Mawanoa leaves next year and Popo Aguirre steps in, right? Like that's the natural progression. And you got to have that great guy and for instance, Aguirre's getting playing time this year and doing really well, right? He had the big fumble recovery for a touchdown. Like he's getting experience. He'll be the next guy up. He'll be really good. But they need that at every single position. And now that the transfer portal is here, it's a blessing and a curse because, does a guy stay here who's really, really good, but is going to be a backup, right? Is for instance, Chris Johnson, right? Really, really speedy, excellent player. Won't start here, but he will get 5 to 10 carries in games, 3-4 catches in games, right? He's not built like Mario Cristobal wants for a featured back. Does he stay and accept that role, or does he leave? In the old days, he stays and he's happy with it. Return some kicks, do really well in special teams, get your carries here and there, have some explosive plays, right? But an SMU comes along and says, hey, our system, we use small running backs, fast running backs. You will get 15 to 20 carries a game. We'll use you big time in the receiving game. You'll be a starter, right? So that's across the board, right? There's receivers that are really, really good at Miami that are young right now. At some point, a couple of them aren't going to start, and they're going to be like, I'm going to have a better chance somewhere else, even though they should be the next man up at a program like Miami, right? They should sit there for 2 years, learning, even 3 years, learning, being really good. Then as redshirt juniors, they step up and are monsters and go to the NFL. That's what used to happen. That dynamic doesn't exist anymore for fans that haven't been paying attention. Those players leave. They want to play as second-year players, as third-year players. They don't want to wait till their fourth year. If it's a guy at Miami who doesn't think he's starting in year 3, he's leaving, no matter how good he is. And that's part of the reason why SMU is so damn good. It's because Miami had some really good players, but they weren't as good as the players ahead of them. Rashard Smith wasn't as good as Xavier Restrepo because Xavier Restrepo's the best receiver in the country, slot receiver in the country. So, so Rashard leaves. He's a great receiver in his own right. There's defensive linemen that left the program that are getting tons of sacks, including at SMU, right? But they weren't as good as Ruben Bain, or apparently they got Tyler Brown afterwards. But but those guys weren't playing last year; they left. So that's the issue that Mark Cristobal also has to figure out. It's so difficult to be a head coach in any college sport right now, all the way down to badminton. Is that a college sport? I don't know. But there's. I heard they expanded the badminton scholarships from 1 to 14, and that they have millions of dollars in badminton NIL deals. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, at least Miami's not having auditions for kickers. All right, we got that straight. We got that straightened out here. Thank God. So we're okay.
And I think you talking about kind of having the next guy at every position is a big glare in that secondary. And I think I don't want to segue into recruiting a little bit. That's why they're kind of going so hard in that 2025 class with DBs. Right now they have a few top guys at cornerback: Jabari Antoine, Chris Ewald, Amari Wallace, Drake Stubbs, a few top 100 defensive backs that they're crossing their fingers and hoping to push in, and they're trying to flip a few more guys, DJ Pickett, Ben Hanks, for all the recruiting heads watching. And a lot of those guys will be at that Florida State game this weekend. So maybe that's that perfect, hey, audition. Listen, we're a good team, but the secondary isn't good, and you come play early. So we'll see how that goes. And, sticking on the note of recruiting, a ton of recruiting on the site. Yesterday, Steven put kind of a short list of guys expected at that Florida State game this weekend. So make sure to check it out. And make sure to check out all the updates that we have on guys expecting to be in Coral Gables and South Florida for that huge Florida State matchup. I know Miami wants a lot of guys still in that 2025 class, especially in the secondary, so they're not dealing with these issues next year. But, that's all that we have for the show this morning. Matt, before we wrap it up, head off to Basketball Media Day. Just what are your parting thoughts and things like that you want to say?
I just want to apologize to all the people that expect me to talk negatively and badly. And, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I've always said this, and it's true. Like, I just say what I believe, And coming into this season, I said, I think Miami could win anywhere from 8 to 12 games. I said an undefeated season was possible. I said an 8-win season was possible. It depends how these guys all mesh together as transfers, right? Which is why I predicted in our preseason column and on the show, I said 10 wins. I'm going with 10-2 because it's between 8 and 12 is 10. I did some quick math. But like I said earlier, there's no way I don't see Miami winning the rest of their games this regular season. Now, with that said, when they get to hopefully an ACC title game, probably against Clemson, that's going to tell us a lot about Miami, because people out there in the real world, not in Miami, Orange and Greenland, they don't believe in Miami. They believe in Cam Ward, right? But if you watch these games from the outside looking in, they're thinking Miami's getting a little bit lucky. And they're thinking Miami's not playing really good teams. I mean, Louisville had 2 losses. Cal, I think, has a losing record now, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, Virginia Tech is 4-3. Like, these are 3 teams. And before that, Miami played basically nobody. You can argue Florida's good. I have a hard time. I would not say Florida's a good team, personally, okay? No matter whether they played a close game against a good team or not. I'm not saying they're a good team. They're not. And they played lousy teams other than that are different levels than Miami. So I understand why there's doubters on the outside. I understand why Miami is number 6 in the rankings behind one-loss teams. They haven't earned it. The only way Miami's going to earn it this year is in the ACC title game against the Clemson, and then, because Clemson got killed by Georgia, in the playoffs, right? So it's going to be a really, really interesting end of the season, especially if Miami winds up losing to Clemson in the ACC title game. Because now, do these people in these polls that work into the college football playoff polls, essentially, do they punish Miami for having 3 close losses that some people think all 3 were decided by referees or people sitting in an ACC room that made bad decisions, according to some of these fans and some of these people? Or do you say, we're giving Miami a chance in the playoffs? Because they're already putting Miami with 1 loss, with no losses behind 1-loss teams. Will they put Miami with 1 loss behind 2-loss teams if that loss is in the ACC title game to Clemson? Because if they do, and you have 5 guaranteed berths for conference title winners, and if those 5 conference title winners aren't top 10 teams, hypothetically, which they don't all have to be, you could see a scenario where we are last year's FSU, and we are screwed. So Miami has to keep winning. Miami has to win the ACC title game just to make sure, because otherwise, 30% chance they don't make the playoffs, so they lose to Clemson and finish undefeated in the regular season. Like, that's a real number. I don't think that's not true at this point, depending how the other conference title games work out. 12 teams make it. Can you imagine a 1-loss Miami team that just lost its last game in the conference title game, not making the playoffs? The outrage, justifiably so, only because Miami was given a schedule by the ACC that didn't include SMU, Clemson, Pitt, and whoever else. I mean, that's real. And so I think Miami needs to not only win these games against Florida State and Duke and whoever else convincingly, like, they need to win those games by a lot of points. They can't keep winning games by 3 to 7 points. They won their last 3 games by a combined, I think, 12 points, 11 points. You can't keep doing that if you want to finish potentially losing to a really good team in the ACC title game and still making the playoffs, because that's the goal. You get to that ACC title game as a reward, not a punishment. And if you finish the regular season undefeated and don't go to the ACC title game because it's SMU and Clemson, you're in the playoffs, bro. If you go to the ACC title game and lose to Clemson, you could be punished by not making the playoffs. Like, that's ridiculous. But that's the truth. That's the stupid system we live in. They're going to get punished hypothetically by going to the ACC title game, and if they lose it, like because of the perception. So Miami has to start killing teams, play better defense against bad opponents, crush Florida State 62-0.
Yes.
Things like that. Okay, that's what needs to start happening.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the wild, wild west come December, like you mentioned. Those scenarios play out. And one thing I want to say before we sign off: Clemson does play Louisville and Virginia Tech in the regular season. I think these next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So I think that's going to be a great indication of just how good those teams were. And I feel like that.
Yeah, and SMU plays Pitt. There's good teams remaining for both of them. There's no doubt about it.
So we'll really get to see kind of what these ACC teams are made of. But right now we're focused on Florida State and Miami this Saturday. So we'll wrap it up today. Thank you all for joining us on Good Morning CaneSport. For Matt Shodell, I'm Izubee Charles. Thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your day.